My name is Prentice Thomas, and this is my presentation on defining curriculum, or what curriculum means to me. Of course, it's for EDS 708. So before we get into the presentation, I kind of want to just go over the flow of how it's going to go. First, I'm going to provide my 3 statements or my personal beliefs on what curriculum is, or what it should strive to do. Then I'll have a little bit of information on how to achieve that in the design process, and any other important things that I may have. And then we'll look at the researches that I came up with while I was creating this presentation, and look at the connections that they may have to what I feel that curriculum is. And then I'll share any final thoughts. So, statement number 1. I believe curriculum will connect, or should connect, theory research with practice or the instruction. I'm big on instruction, and I think that what we learn in our classes, what we learn in our independent study, or what we learn in book reading, or things like that, book studies, it should be able to be used in the instructional setting. We should be able to connect it. So how do we do this? Well, we put systems in place to help guide instruction. So whatever we learn or whatever we research needs to be used. We collaborate with teachers to use best practices, or to understand or learn what those best practices are. And we want to make sure that assessments are effective at gauging learning. So we want to make sure we have assessments that are good at giving us good information on how students are learning, what they're learning, and where they need to be, or if they are meeting their goals. So the world is ever changing, so the information that we learn is always changing, or always being added to, things in that nature. Educators are continuous learners, so we also always want to make sure that we're on top of the newest and latest studies, things that we can find and add to our classrooms. And again, big on instruction. Instruction will drive the learning. So good quality instruction can combat or overcome a lot of things that you may see in the classroom, outside of the classroom. Statement number 2, curriculum connects the learning class with real-world applications. Students will always ask, and I'm sure a lot of us have had these interactions where students have asked, why do I need to know this? Well, curriculum, in my opinion, will have those examples built into it. So how do we do this? Students will use 21st century skills, being able to critically think, so critical thinking skills. Students practice working together, collaboration. I think that's very important. Our world is very big, but we're all connected, especially through technology, and they need to be able to practice working together. Students are able to demonstrate connections. That may be the biggest thing in a curriculum. We are teaching, we're instructing, but the student at the end of the day needs to be able to demonstrate those connections that are being made. So we need to be able to effectively instruct and assess. So again, we want to practice those real world skills, just driven by collaboration, and they must be able to demonstrate that learning. Statement number 3, curriculum connects all stakeholders. So the community has a say-so. All right, so this is how we do it, giving them a voice. We would definitely want their ideas in the process. But the next part, educators serve as a go-between. So we want the community to have their say-so. We want them to be heard. But they also need to be able to balance that with educators, because educators, we know what we're doing. We know what's best for our students. Many times we have our kids, especially throughout the year, we have them, or we see them a lot more than their parents will see them on a daily basis. So we know what's best, but again, we want the community to have a say-so. And again, we want to be that go-between, that middleman between the students and parents. We also want students to have provide feedback in their learning. And at the end of the day, we need to know that students are at the center of all the decisions that are being made. So community is recognized and has input. Educators should create opportunities for interaction to get that input from the community. And all the stakeholders must make decisions with students in mind. So just looking at some researchers, Bovell and Walmer, they spoke about curriculum being something that provides opportunity for students to co-create the curriculum with staff. So this goes to our student choice. Okay, so this is how it kind of connects to what I've looked at in my statements. We want students to provide that feedback. We want them to have choice in their learning and how they learn it. A good curriculum has student feedback embedded into it. So again, we want to know what the students are thinking about the instructional practice, about the examples that we're using to connect them to, what's being learned in class and to the real world. These two researchers went on to discuss some design framework in their research. So two things they discussed in constructive, which moves from teacher-centered to student-centered. Again, it moves from what teacher does, so we're no longer not really as focused on what the teacher is doing, but what the student is doing, throughout that classroom or the flow of the class. So what is the student doing before, during, and after? So what strategies are being used by the teacher? How is the student taking those strategies and then using it in some different way to understand the information? The next framework was knowing, acting, and this takes the curriculum or the information that's learned in the classroom, but we also want them to find a balance with that and the knowledge of life skills, with knowledge and life skills. So we want them to take the information being learned in the classroom and also work on life skills that they'll need outside of that classroom. Galen and Ehlers, they talked about opinions of the shareholders from different segments. So we want to make sure that there's collaboration between all parties and we have the same core vision. Kaplan looked at differentiated curriculum. So we need a curriculum, or good curriculum is defined by how is it able to address the needs of every student, not just the general population, but especially with Kaplan, she was more gifted students, but our special education students. What is the curriculum doing for those different populations of our students? We want to make sure that we tailor to the needs of all of our students. All of our kids should be student-centered, and they are at the like I said, the center of what we do. Finally, the last researcher here, Stauffer, curriculum is a collection of lessons, assessments, and any other content that we have. And she also listed some parts of curriculum design. We need a simple but clear vision, and the objective should connect to the instruction, while that instruction then connects to our real world applications. And then the final thoughts as I wrap this up. Curriculum is a continuous multi-step process. It needs to have clear goals, needs to be able to evaluate, needs to adjust. We need to make sure that we don't just have something in place. We need to be able to reflect on it and adjust it as needed. Finally, it needs to keep the kids in mind. So that was kind of a brief thing of my presentation of what good curriculum is, or what I believe it should be defined by. Connecting, to real world applications, connecting our stakeholders, and then connecting our theory and research into instructional practice. I hope you was able to get something out of the information in this presentation. Thank you for your attention. Have a great afternoon.